favorite segment, Who's in the Blender, here at the Juice Bar. Alex Monaco, it's not defenses, because the offensive, especially on the passing game, have been low. Listen to these numbers. Week 1 NFL passing touchdowns, 2019, 61. We were talking about it's now a passing league. They're changing all the rules for offense. How do we even play defense anymore? We can't stop these guys.
Right.
61 in 2019. 2020, 52. 2021, we're back to 61. 2022, 51. 2023, 37. Falls off a cliff. This year, 35. So
that's crazy drop off.
I mean, there was some really bad quarterback play this week as well.
My first thing is that no one does the preseason with their starters anymore.
Yeah,
McVay kind of like stamped that poll in 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
And now everybody does.
I will say this. For a guy that didn't throw any touchdowns, Brock Purdy was dicing those boys up. Maybe it's just a situational thing. I think there's just – in 2019, I think there was just a lot better quarterbacks in the league, too, across the board. Tom is still around. There's a lot of different guys there.
Full name.
Thomas is still playing.
TV
Aaron is Aaron. Stafford is younger. There's a lot of different.
Big Ben still floating
Big
around.
Ben still floating around. So it's different.
Flacco throwing somewhere. No.
I say that to say, who do you got in the blender? Because quarterback play is clearly going to come up here.
What's happening with the Cincinnati Bengals?
What is happening with the Cincinnati
10
Bengals?
points.
Yeah.
That wasn't in New England. If that was in New England, I'd be like, all right, rah-rah game, at home, defense. We are underappreciating what Belichick left. Mayo's a defensive guy. I mean, we've seen his coaching trees go on to succeed. I saw a post-game presser that Brissett got gassed up by Mayo before. He says, you're going to go out there, you're going to ball, and we're going to win. Yeah. And he said the way he talked to me, no one's ever talked to me like that as a head coach before a game. I look at the Bengals. T. Higgins was out, not their number one, Jamar. And then we're talking about a pitch count for him. That one dish to Gesicki in the corner. Other than that, I saw no flashes of Joey Burr.
Two
Sean,
really bad fumbles.
10 points?
Two really bad fumbles. If you remember over the summer, I talked about being a little worried about the Bengals. And I think coming into week 1 and just I should have listened to more of the noise. I was worried about them coming in, but they were laying almost 10 points. And they had no business doing so. Because if you think about it, DJ Reader, talked about him. He's now in Detroit.
Joe Mixon.
Joe Mixon now in Houston. He went berserk. Trey Hendrickson asked for a trade.
You're right.
Joe's dealing with a wrist. Now Chase he's holding in. He hasn't been in camp.
You think this is a locker? You think this might be a locker room?
Boyd's not there. Like, there's a lot of question marks coming in, and we're like, oh yeah, 9.5. I think more of it was we thought that the New England Patriots would be just horrific, that there's just no way they can go on the road and get a W.
Sure.
There's some real questions about the Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Burrow and what he's going to look like going forward. This is now a trend of every single year. They come stumbling out of the gates
flat
and then try to pick it up in the middle of the year. And with how tough the AFC is, that's not going to work.
I'm concerned, though, is Zach Taylor going to be able to – this locker room – you saw what Jerry Jones did, and yes, he took till the 11th hour to sign CD and Dak.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to talk about capping last second, pay your quarterback top dollar while he's in the Marriott Hotel before he takes the field, and then he just stomps the Browns. You do not see – to your point with Hendrickson, you got now T. Higgins was pissed. He hasn't gotten a deal. Chase is over here talking to the media, this, that. I don't think the Bengals know how to take care of their stars because they haven't had many since the great Boomer Esiason. I'm over here looking at this locker room and thinking they're going to have an internal issue all season.
Not one positive thing coming out of Cincinnati all summer. Think about that.
So they're staying in the blender because they got to go to what was, as you said off air, Burrowhead.
Burrowhead, yeah.
It's a big week 2 matchup.
They were calling that. We're far from that. They had the cachet to call it Burrowhead because they were competing.
Sure.
Now you're coming off extra rest for the Chiefs, and then you have to go to Arrowhead.
Uh-oh. Who do you got in the blender?
Who do I got? Who do you want? I got a lot of people in the blender here. I got the Atlanta Falcons. They're in the blender. The Cleveland Browns. They're in the blender. The Giants are clearly in a blender that we loaded full of fruit last year.
He looked up for that.
Not a piece of fruit has come out of the blender. They continue to get more and more ugly in the Meadowlands. But I'm going to focus on the Cleveland Browns.
Okay.
Because
they're stuck.
They are stuck.
And Nick Chubb is still on IR.
And they need to figure out a way to move on. If it's benching him and putting in Jameis Winston, I'm talking about Deshaun Watson.
You think he's
that
broken?
Could be the case.
Is he broken?
Clearly.
Like pitcher lost his fastball type. Like Kenny Powers, season 1 to season 2.
Clearly.
All right.
Clearly. I haven't seen a flash of the Houston Texans Deshaun Watson since he's been there. And we're going on years now. Now there's more reports about the off-the-field stuff that we don't have to get into. But they're in the blender because they're on the hook for all that money. And the locker room is going to start to flip because they don't care about that contract. We want to try to compete. And if Jameis Winston's going to give us a better chance, he has to play.
Wild.
Lastly, quickly, the Falcons are in the blender. The difference between Kirk Cousins' Achilles and Aaron Rodgers' Achilles
night and day.
Is they're different feet.
They're different athletes.
Well, no, but what I'm saying is Kirk Achilles, he blew was his right, plant leg. You go back and look at his throws all week 1 versus, well, it doesn't help when TJ Watt is in your kitchen every single play. That's a whole nother pod.
Listen up this
But Rodgers' Achilles is his left. So you ever notice when he's throwing the rock, his left foot's almost always off the ground anyway. He's planning, left foot's off the ground. It didn't look like Kirk Cousins wanted to plant off that right foot and let it go.
Do we dare say Kirk Cousins is a cul-de-sac quarterback at this point? Should be throwing to neighborhood kids?
He
looks like an abomination.
A cul-de-sac quarterback.
This man's a cul-de-sac quarterback.
I'll say
Tuck
this.
in your shirt.
Kirk,
it's over.
A juice bar blender quarterback, no doubt.
Oh, I love that.